Hi, I'm Dr. Gillian Wilson and I'm a clinical psychologist and resident consultant with Be Balanced Educational Resources and Be Balanced BU. So for the podcast tonight, Karen's not with me, so I'll be doing it on my own, but she's asked me if I could do a podcast for a parent who is having some difficulty getting their 13-year-old son to shower more. So I suppose the same as my last podcast, the first thing I would say is that at 13, the young person is becoming a teenager, and as such, they're developing their own independence and their own free will and making decisions and judgments. So it's about being aware of that, and it's very different with maybe supporting a 5 or 6 year old child. When they become a teenager, you really need to give them more space to make decisions, and it's about helping to support them with those decisions rather than telling them what to do. So in terms of anything where a parent would be asking me for some advice around changing a behaviour, the first thing is always to understand why the behaviour is happening before you look at, well, what can you do to help support the young person to change that. So in terms of thinking about why this young person may not be showering as much as the parent would like, as a 13-year-old, they'll have moved and transitioned to post-primary school at that point. So they probably are getting a lot of homework. They've had a lot of changes with school. They're having to manage friendships, social media, all the pressures of homework. So they may be feeling really tired from all of that. And it may be that they just feel too tired to have a shower. It may be that they're just very busy with other things when you add in all the things that they need to do every day, and then they're going to be wanting to do some things to have some downtime and decompress as well. Another thing with some children more than other children, and certainly children that are neurodiverse, there can be sensory elements why they dislike having a shower. So sometimes it's maybe to do with the temperature of the water or the pressure of the water. If you have a shower head that maybe has a higher pressure, that can for some people feel almost quite painful on their skin. Sometimes things like the smell of the shower gel, if it has quite a strong smell, some young people may not like that. Sometimes it's just to do with the feeling of the water on their skin. With some young people, they don't particularly like getting their head wet. Maybe it's the water running down into their eyes or into their ears. And then the other things, maybe rubbing their skin when they're washing. And then the other thing is when they finish the shower and they come out of the shower, certainly in the winter months when you've been in having a nice hot shower and you step out, it can feel very cold. So that can be another thing that maybe the young person doesn't particularly like. Another thing, I suppose, that can be quite common with young people is that it's just not high in their priority list. It's not that they intentionally plan not to have a shower. They just don't, it's just not a high priority, and they don't really see it as a problem. So it may be that the parents are more concerned about it than the young person is. Again, with the 13-year-old, another thing that may be making it difficult is that around this age, they're going to be going through puberty and their body's going to be changing a lot. So one of the things for a young person who's maybe struggling with that is that when they're in the shower, they're very much confronted with all those physical changes. So again, some young people will find this more difficult than others, but that may be another reason why they're not particularly wanting to shower, because they're just finding those changes difficult and frightening. So I suppose in terms of how to support the young person depends a little bit on why they're not having a shower as much as their parents would like. So the point about puberty, if that seems to be what the concern is, then obviously one of the things that can really help is just talking through any concerns with the young person, um, and signposting them, providing them with more information, um, factual information that's accurate, that can help them to understand some of those changes, and maybe explaining to them why you would like them to shower more. So with a younger child, they're not going to be producing sweat and body odor the way an adolescent will. So it's maybe explaining, well, this is why I feel it would be important for you to shower 5 times a week or 7 times a week or whatever you feel as a parent that you would like your young person to be doing. If the reasons are more sensory related, then there can be things that you can do that might be able to help that are quite practical. So things like maybe with the shower head, are there different settings on the shower head that would have less water pressure? If they don't like the feeling of the water on running down their head and they're scared of getting the water in their eyes or in their ears, things like a little pair of swimming plugs for using the swimming pool, or a pair of goggles can help. If the shower gel is a strong smell, then getting shower gel that it has a neutral smell, or taking them shopping with you to pick a smell of a shower gel that they like, or a soap. I suppose really what you want to do is you want to make the shower an attractive experience for them, rather than something that they're tolerating, because if they enjoy it, they're going to be more likely to want to do it. When they come out of the shower, again, sometimes drying yourself with a rough towel can be unpleasant. So again, if this is an issue, then maybe getting a soft towel for them, or some parents that I've worked with, we've looked at something like a toweling dressing gown that the child could almost just come out, put the dressing gown on and dry off in the dressing gown, rather than having to dry themselves with a towel. Or some of the kind of long fleecy hoodies, so that they can warm up quite quickly when they come out of the shower. One of the commonest causes, as I said earlier, often it's not an intentional thing. It's just that life's busy, and that they'll say, well, they didn't get round to it or forgot. So one of the things that can really help with that is pairing it to you. You want to make it a habit that they don't have to think about planning to do it. So one of the things that can really help with forming a new habit is pairing it with something that already is a habit. So that makes it much more likely that we're going to remember to do it. So if you pair it with, say, you have your breakfast in the morning and then you go upstairs and have your shower, that will work much better than just remembering to have it at some point during the day. Because after a while of doing that, your brain will just automatically trigger the thought breakfast and shower rather than just breakfast. So pairing it maybe with breakfast in the morning, or if it's easier for them to have a shower in the evening, then maybe pairing it with preparing their school bag for school the next day. And I suppose the last thing I would say is just to try not to get into a battle about it. When you're working with any teenager, it's about working as a team and coming up with a plan together. So it's really important to get them on board with anything that you would like them to change or you would like them to do more. So sometimes as a parent, you just need to take a deep breath and pick your battles, because the most important thing with a young person is that you're keeping those lines of communication open, and that if there are concerns about puberty or anything, they'll come and talk to you about it. So it's just about being mindful of that, and hopefully maybe some of those tips might help out. So that's all for tonight, and we'll have another podcast on next week. Bye.